making a difference. My talk today is obviously about making a difference, but it's also about assigning meaning to your own life. There was a young boy walking along the shore of a beach, and in the distance he could see a man hurling things into the sea. As he got closer, he realized that there were thousands of starfish on the beach that had washed up in the high tide. And this man was walking along, picking one up and throwing it back into the ocean. So as the young boy approached, watching the man all the time, he said to the man, Hi, mister. And the man said, Hello, young fellow. Well, the young boy couldn't contain himself. He had to say what he was thinking. He said, There are thousands of starfish on this beach. You can't possibly make a difference. And the man, without a word, reached down and picked one up, flung it into the ocean, and said, I made a difference to that one. Now, some of you have heard this story, and it bears repeating, because sometimes we forget that we can make a difference in this world. Sometimes when we see the vastness of all that is around us, when we see the vastness of the universe and universes, I'm told that there are universes just untold. We have no idea really what's out there, and sometimes we may feel really small. But we have the ability to make a difference in this world, in people's lives, in our own life. Luke 10:30 through 37. Jesus was asked by an attorney, What must I do to have eternal life? And Jesus said, It is written in the law that you love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. The second commandment is love your neighbor as yourself. And the attorney said to Jesus, Who is my neighbor? And Jesus, as he did many times, launched into a story. He said there was once a man walking from Jericho to Jerusalem, and he was encountered by robbers. They stole not only his money and valuables, but took his clothing as well, beat him and left him naked on the side of the road, left him to die. Well, a priest came along, and some Bible scholars believe that the man was of a tribe that the priest did not have anything to do with these people. So the priest moved to the other side of the road and continued to walk. Well, a Levite man came along and did the same thing. Looked at the man across the street, walked to the other side, and walked away. You probably recognize this as the story of the Good Samaritan. And along came a Samaritan man. Now, this Samaritan man, in the culture of that day, was an outcast, basically. Samaritans were half Jew and half Gentile. The Jews didn't accept them, and the Gentiles didn't either. So they came together and created a tribe of their own, basically. But were pretty much outcasts, except for their own Samaritan tribes. Well, the Samaritan man saw the man dying on the side of the road, and he went to the man and took wine and oil, which was one of the things that they used as medicine in those days, and poured oil and wine on the man's wounds, and bound his wounds, and put his own clothing on the man, put the man on his donkey, and took him into the city, and went to an inn, and gave the innkeeper money, and said, "Take care of this man. I'm on a trip. I will come back through here on my way back, and if I owe you more money for taking care of him, I will give you the money at that time." And Jesus said, after telling this story, "Who do you think out of this story was the man's neighbor, the wounded man's neighbor?" Of course, the Samaritan man. And Jesus said, These are your neighbors. Open your heart and mind to who is your neighbor. I believe that we, first and foremost, are our own neighbor. We are our own neighbor. I know you've heard the metaphor about when you're on a plane and the flight attendant says, in case of a drop in cabin pressure, the oxygen will fall down. If you're traveling with a small child or a dependent person, put the oxygen over your own nose first. You are your own first neighbor. Treat yourself the way that you would treat the most respected person in your life. And do it on a regular basis, because this is where it starts. We will treat, when Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, it was not only a command, it was also an observation, because we do love others the way that we love our own selves. We cannot love more than we love ourselves. We are our own best neighbor. I looked for the author of this quotation, couldn't find it. Many things in the world produce a feeling of happiness, but the people who are truly happy are those who have found a way to serve. And it is my belief that we must serve ourselves first, not in a haughty way, not in a way that we set ourselves apart, but in a healthy way, that we take care of our physical needs, we take care of our emotional needs, we take care of our spiritual needs. And then we are well equipped to move out in the world and take care of the needs of others. Augmandino. Many of us never realize our greatness because we become sidetracked by secondary activities. I won't ask for a show of hands, but have you ever busied yourself with things just so you wouldn't have to do the obvious? Some big thing is in front of you, and rather than address that important thing, the bigger thing, do all kinds of little odd things all around. Moving into a life of greatness, which is what we are all destined to do. Every single one of us. Now I know that in our civilization that we put as a collective consciousness, somewhere along the line it was chosen that certain positions in the world and certain occupations would have higher esteem than others. But the truth is, the capital T truth is, and I could be wrong, but I'm not. The capital T truth is there is no one of us that is more important than the other. I don't care what our occupation is. I don't care what we've accomplished in life. I don't care what our title happens to be. None of that is important when we are looking at the importance of each and every human being. We are all important in our own right. I address that in my book about your life would be if there were no sanitation workers. Think about what your life would be if there were no checkers in the grocery store. Think about what your life would be if there were no wait staff in a restaurant. We are all important to do the job that we have come here to do, and we each can make a difference. In researching this, a lot of the things that Edwene Gaines has taught me over the years came up for me, because it is her thought, and I've embraced the thought over time, that whatever is ours to do in the world should bring a measure of joy. Now, I'm not talking about the joy that you jump up and click your heels together, if you indeed are able to do that. But the kind of joy of knowing within that you've done what is yours to do in the world. Holding that joy. To quote her, "My path is a pathway of joy. The key to finding your purpose and your joy is this: make it up." Sometimes we look for things in life and we're waiting for lightning to strike and God to write on the wall whatever we are to do with our life. Well, Edwene says, don't wait for that. You're wasting a lot of time. Don't wait for that. Look within your own self. What brings you joy? What causes happiness in your life? And do that thing that brings you the most joy. She also, I've told you many times, she says, Earth is the party planet, and if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. Now, I know that every moment of every day is not going to be kick up your heels, joyful, and all of that. We all have things that we walk through in life. I visited my family. A lot of you know that I spoke at a women's conference in Dallas, and then I went on to Houston to visit my family. And part of the visit is finding out what's going on with various members of the family. I have a huge family, and I'm not exaggerating, it's totally huge. If you've ever seen the movie My Big Fat Greek Wedding, that's my family, only we're mostly English and Irish, some Italian. So in a large family, there's a lot going on, and not all of it is kick up your heels and be happy, outwardly joyful, and that type of thing. We all have those things in our lives. But when we reach a place where we have co-created with God a life that, for the most part, we love living, and I'm making this gesture on purpose because to me, joy is an overarching thing that we co-create with God. Every single thing under that arch is not drop-dead wonderful, but we deal with those things and we move toward the joy. Along the lines of finding a way to serve, those people that are really happy in this world are those who have found a way to serve. Edwene says, think of all the things that need fixing in the world. Pick one and devote your life to it. I thought, what great advice. Pick one. Pick some kind of service work that you can physically do. Pick sending money to help support something that you believe in. Pick something and devote your life to it. To think that every good and worthy cause that comes down the pipe, that we would be able to do something about it as one human being, is not realistic. Plus, it dissipates our energy. Think of one pointed intention, as Deepak Chopra says. Matthew 6:22, the famous Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, "The light of the body is the eye. Therefore, if thine eye be single, the whole body is full of light." One of the things that he was teaching in this specific scripture is that when we focus our attention on that which is ours to do in the world, then it is a concentrated effort, if you will. Think about the lights that light this building up. When you look at the fluorescent lights over here, how they spread like this, and we have light. You take those same light beams, and you concentrate them into a laser beam, and it will cut through steel. When we have one pointed intention with our lives, when we know that we know what we came here to do, basically, and we give that our focus and attention, think of the good that we can do. Think how we can make a difference. And first, make a difference in our very own lives. It also brought to mind when I would go to Edwin Gaines' retreats, I would have an opportunity to do a fire walk. And if you don't know what a fire walk is, you've probably at least seen it in the movies or read about it or whatever. It's coals, hot coals, red hot coals that ours were, 12 feet long or whatever. And with the proper training that we can walk across those coals without burning our feet. One of the things that Edwin says is, do not walk the coals unless you get absolute guidance that you can walk and not get burned. This is a number one lesson. If a person hears that and is not really accustomed to listening to the voice of God, the inner voice, the Holy Spirit, or whatever word that you want to put to that voice within us that will always steer us right, never steer us wrong, never ever. Listening to that voice, and she said, this is absolutely what you must do first and foremost. If you do not get the clear guidance to walk the fire and you will not get burned, do not walk. And then some of you that know her know that she delivers things in funny ways and gets her point across while amusing everyone. She said, if you don't listen to your guidance and you walk and you get burned, I'm not taking you to the emergency room and I don't have any aloe vera. I've walked the coals on probably 5 different occasions. Never once burned, never witnessed anybody being burned. And some people would not walk the fire because they would get the guidance not to walk. Or maybe they couldn't hear guidance at all. Many things are learned through walking the coals. One is listening to guidance. Another is, if that can be done by human beings, what other physical laws that we've just accepted because it is collective consciousness, what other laws are not really laws at all? We've just accepted it, so we go along with it, and nobody has bucked the system whenever it comes to that particular thing. I believe it was Emerson that said, everything was impossible until somebody did it. There are so many things in our lives that we could move forward through guidance. We could use our faculties of strength, imagination, and all the other faculties that we're given. Innate faculties in everyone. We can use these faculties to make meaning in our own lives and make a difference in the world. Another thing that the fire walk helps a lot of people with is walking through your fears. Part of the preparation for walking the fire is writing down what we would like to release, writing down our prayers, and writing down the fears that we would like to release. And then we go through some symbolism and a ritual, and we throw those papers into the fire, much like we do when we do our burning bowl service. We throw those things into the fire and then basically walk on them. It is very empowering. Now, I'm not saying if you're not called to do that kind of thing, because first of all, when Edwin said you have an opportunity to do a fire walk, I thought, who in the world would want to do that? But later on I learned, I in the world would want to do that. There are things that we can do in our own lives to help ourselves move through the fears in our lives. Find out what that is. Face that and move through it. One of the things that Edwin teaches right before the fire walk, two things. I create my own reality. This is something that we all do. We co-create with God our own reality. God gives us, my belief that, my humble but correct opinion, that we are given every single tool, every single opportunity, everything that we need, every talent, everything that we need in order to accomplish our heart's desires. We simply need to move forward with these things. Pick up the tools, use the talents, use the opportunities that come our way. The second thing is, I am the one who assigns meaning to my life. She really, really teaches this, that no one else is going to tell you this is the meaning of your life. I mean, people can help us find whatever the meaning is, but the meaning of our own life is indelibly printed within each and every one of us. We simply need to find what that is and move in that direction. It really doesn't make any difference where we are in life, what experiences we've had, what education we've had. It doesn't really matter about those things. When, as they say, the rubber meets the road, when we close our eyes at night, when we're in our bed and close our eyes, and there is nothing and no one there but self and God, and it's my belief that it's all the same, that's who we really are. That's the person that has come here to accomplish. That is the person that can make a difference in the world. So I just want to leave you with a couple of quotes from Abraham Maslow, best known for man's hierarchy of needs. If you're not familiar with it, our basic needs are for air, food, water, shelter. That's a basic need. And then we have a need to be accepted and in a tribe, basically. And on up to the top, it's a pyramid, and the top is self-actualization. And that is when we reach a place that we know who we are, we know what we've come here to do, we are on purpose, we are walking our path, at least most of the time. That's self-actualization. So, Abraham Maslow. Unless you assign meaning to your life, you will miss out on life. We each must assign the meaning that we have in our life. We can take information from people, we can take advice from people, but the bottom line is, when we are in bed at night, our eyes are closed, what does our life mean? another Abraham Maslow. In order to be truly happy in our lives, what we can become, we must become. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.